Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzy Jane, and we're back with another week of the podcast. We have Skybreak joining me to break down their new album, Half Blood, in its entirety, all the inspiration, all the visions, all the hidden meanings, even some hidden little Easter eggs that are subliminally, intentionally placed into the record itself. It was such a lovely conversation with Jack. I'm so hyped for everybody to hear it. And I honestly believe that he lays out a blueprint for future artists that are looking to change their sound, diversify the type of music they are producing, releasing, and broaden their horizons of the audience and fan base that they've currently been able to reach. He really lays out this blueprint for you guys, and I'm so pumped for everyone who is a fan of the album, a fan of Skybreak, the music that he's made, the music that he just released, and the music that he's going to make in the future. Whether you're here for any of those reasons, it doesn't matter the reason that you're here listening to this conversation. Just know that this was such a delightful podcast. And if you haven't streamed Half Blood yet, make sure you go and stream it now. Let's hop into the podcast. If you love what we're doing, please share. We spread organically. Share with a friend, share with a fellow aspiring electronic music artist, or just share it because you love the conversation and you want to support what we're doing here at the Lizzy Jane Podcast. Make sure you tune into my show on Insomniac Radio, on Impact, every Wednesday, the XX transmission at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, to hear an exclusive album preview, guest mix, and excerpt from this podcast a day before it drops with all of my future guests. Let's hop into it. This is Lizzy Jane, and you're tuning in to the Lizzy Jane Podcast with special guest Skybreak. Hey guys, what's up? It's your host, Lizzy Jane, here on the podcast today. The sun is shining outside and we have Skybreak joining me today, hot off their studio album release. We have Half Blood is out into the world. Your baby has been born and birthed and people are loving it and receiving it, and you've done it in such like a genuine, authentic way. And I just am so hyped to see artists like yourself not only growing but pushing this wave forward. So welcome to the podcast today. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's super exciting to be back. I don't know if any viewers remember this, but like 5 years ago at this point, I think like right as COVID started, me and Paper Skies, who's similarly killing it in what I think is the most genuine way possible. And it's just crazy. Neither of us had played a show in our life the last time that we were on here. And now behind me are two posters of two other fully realized visions. And today I'm on here to talk about possibly my favorite one at the moment, which is Half Blood. And it's awesome to be back. You were one of the first, like, I guess, DJs actually playing shows to support our stuff. So happy to come back on and support the podcast.
I know, it's so fucking crazy because I think about that so often, and there's a lot of people. I just had Floret Loret on the other day, and he's also like a Florida homie, really music forward facing producer. And I've been having a lot of conversations about how nothing that is worth having comes to fruition quickly. And it's wild to think about that you and Paper Skies were my third or fourth podcast ever. And now we're like almost on the 200th episode. And you guys have both just like blossomed in your own right and are fucking killing it. And there's so many things to like discuss and say behind that, because you guys have always been like music first, like brand vision to support like the body of work. And I think that is so difficult to do in the current climate that we're in. And y'all have done it so like elegantly, authentically, and people fuck with it so hard, which is why you literally can independently like release an album and it do so well with like the proper support and vision. So I want to get into the album. I want to talk Half Blood. I want to talk about just the whole process and just kind of like let you ramble on about maybe things people haven't heard yet in regards to this new album of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And yeah, Dan is obviously the day oneer. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, and it's pretty common knowledge, but we have known each other for coming up on 12 years now. We're in like a Skype group chat ages ago, and somehow I feel like we're connected by soul. We've always been at very similar points in our career, and continue to be friends this entire time. Like, it's crazy. We have this. The best way to describe it is like, did you watch the old like Pokemon anime? You know how there's like the rival teams, like they're like, oh,
Yes.
my Pokemon can beat yours, and they beef and they battle and stuff. But like when it's time to go like fuck up the big baddie, like they come together and nuke it. That's like me and Dan, but we constantly try to like obviously in good humor, but one up each other in our visions and stuff. And I feel like this year was the first year both of us had the musical experience and the financial assets to go forward and really fully realize these visions. In his case, he did the whole Canvas record, and I've done this Half
Hmm.
Blood thing now, and it's really cool to see that every step of our career has kind of been in parallel, right? And we still have never
Literally.
released a collab that's just us somehow. We'll have to
That's
change that.
so crazy. That's like a big, I feel like that's like a big anticipated collab. When you guys finally have like the record to work on, people are going to definitely freak out. Cause I think people who are like, whether they were very involved in the color based community or Discord or gaming chat rooms, like what you literally just said, I don't think like the average listener or fan knows how like deep you and like this squad runs, especially your relationship with Paper Skies. And it's now just, I think like healthy competition is really good. Sometimes it's like not, but I think in the situation that you're explaining, that healthy competition between like you and another artist parallelly trying to level up, it really just goes to like, it's kind of like the whole cheesy there is no I in team kind of deal. Like everyone
Yeah.
has their own project, but you see these small collectives that I think really I was able to like hone in. When we talked last time, I saw this like color-based community where everyone was like so kind, so nice, wanted to help each other. And that was a really unique space in dance music at the time. And you guys kind of have just continued that over the last half decade. And now so many of you are doing so fucking well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I feel like that was a great group for me to grow up around, like very moral people that were always about the art and very nerdy and very sound designing and stuff. And a lot of them are still like my homies and my boys, but obviously, I feel like the genre of color based, not many things have occurred in it as of late, the genre itself. But I think what's great is we've kind of fully explored the idea of using chords with basses, at least to the potential that color bass in its current form can be. So now
Mhm.
it's time for us to go out and plant seeds in these other genres. So like I've gone out and done it with a lot of UKG and drum and bassy type things. Dan's going the pop route a little bit. Kiro and Convexity are going more into like really weird experimental jazz, almost in that like phonon vein. And I think as they start to flourish in that sound a bit more, there's a lot of potential for them to almost exist more in that jazz space, like contemporary weird stuff like, your Chris Potters and Jacob Colliers and Lewis Cole and stuff like that. I think there's just now that we've kind of figured out the formula, we've all come to the realization that we've like circled back around to just being so about the art that we will make anything and exist in different niches now and just kind of almost like pollinate it with all the sound design tricks that we've learned as a unit. And honestly, like I was kind of crashing out about it last year. I'm like, oh my god, my genre's dead. Like, what's going on? But I don't think anything ever dies if the music's good and written from a place of actual excitement. And so I'm pretty happy with what me and my friends are doing at this point. It's pretty sick.
It's so sick. And that's literally, I have that in like my little notes, which I don't make too many before each podcast because I like to have the conversation flow. And there's like so many things that I'm curious about in regards to just the album and the evolution of the Skybreak sound. Cause you really came into, I think like the dance music scene, like primarily in that color based like wave of momentum when it was just popping the fuck off. Like COVID happened, pandemic happened, everybody was in their kitchen. No one wanted to listen to like really heavy stuff. And you all of a sudden had this like birthed subgenre that had foundations from obviously like Asora, Chime, like the OG guys. But then there was this whole crowd of kind of like these underdog producers that you were in. And like having my own records in color base, it is very intricate. Like it is a very intricate genre to make, and it is so technical from everything from like the sound design process to the mix down process to maybe doing tempo changes or compound time signatures. And that's why I feel like all of you guys have been able to take the influences, and even though the genre isn't like this crazy prevailing thing, and no trend that blows up like that did really ever like stands the test of time. It will always have a rise and fall. I hear so many color-based like sound candy sprinkles throughout your album that it's fucking crazy. Like even in more of like the halftime and like the Stone Cold record, which is like my favorite one after album.
Yeah,
I was like, how did this is the last thing when I listened to it the first time in the gym after Landon and I discussed you coming on, I was like, this is Skybreak? Like, this is Skybreak? Like, what is going on? And then, but you would hear these little like flutters and small, subtle details that to me made the record like what it is. So, but that's all from Colorbase.
No, absolutely. And on that note, I've written this project around a graphics design technique. Actually, it's funny. To fully execute this vision, I learned a lot about graphics design. I've learned a lot about filmmaking, a lot about video editing, and just all these different mediums to come together. And one thing I picked up along the way was the concept of the color splash. Obviously, the main cover art is just all black and white. It's got some lifted blacks, but whatever. But if you looked at the single arts and you look at a lot of the set visuals for the live show that I've been putting together, it all revolves around this concept of something called the color splash. It's an all black and white image, and there's one color that remains precedent. So let's say you have a picture of, I don't know, like a, what is a good example? Let's say I've got a Zelda backpack over there that's super green, or hell, even these plants, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to take the screenshot of what was going on my screen and you desaturated every individual color range except for the greens, your eye would immediately just go to those plants because that stands out against the rest of the things going on. I feel like, as you were saying, Colorbase has been known to be this very technical genre with a million things happening, and it's about the production flexes, and it's about these larger-than-life, euphoric LSD sounds every 2 seconds. But it's like, if you take a little bit of that and you put it on a mature backbone, just like a really well-composed, darker, mature thing, and then you put that in there, your ear is going to immediately go to the details of just that one sound. So, for example, yes, Stone Cold is probably one of the perfect examples of that color splash technique. I consider that tune very red, if that makes sense, if you look at the arts direction that we've ended up doing for that tune. But, yeah, it's like when you're listening to the song, it's like it's this big black and white UKG burial, but a little bit heavier sort of vibe, and then there'll be like one pop or a moment where it's just like a chord bass going dong. And I feel like for a lot of other UKG artists that inspired this record, they would have just put more like whoops or like dark atmospheres or like a little perk fill. But knowing the roots of what I came from, I was able to fuse that into the record, and I genuinely think that that's what makes this unique for me. So yeah,
100%. Like those are your fills. Is instead of having the offbeat triplet perk run or the hi hats or something that has more of like a staccato feel to it, you're doing like kind of like impacts and risers that are like swells of literal like color. So it's really, that all makes so much sense to me because it is kind of like stripping back everything to a singular focus of color or like a singular focus of like sound, and then everything else kind of around it enhances that one focal point.
Absolutely. It's an interesting way to think about production because it forced me at least to rely on so many other facets of my songwriting. Like I had to fall back on groove to keep the songs interesting, and rhythm and solid vocals and lyrics and just good songwriting, right? Like no longer on this record would I allow myself for even a moment to just have a moment of like sound design flexing, and that is the point. Like that's never the point of this record. It's just to enhance it. And I think as a result, it has the potential to resonate with a lot more people. It's funny. I just got back from my 6-month trip with my girlfriend, who's awesome. And shout out her if she's listening. But we drove up there, and in the past, I've been really reluctant to put on my music on a car ride, right? Like, I love my tunes. Obviously, they're great in a club context. They're great to listen to at home. But there were a couple of moments where I've been on like a car ride with friends and something like an Accelerate or I don't know, some of my older stuff. Waterfall's dope. I probably wouldn't mind that. But like Illumina or River Spirit, and come on, and I just get this visceral reaction to just immediately skip it. Not because the song was bad, but just because I was like, oh, the types of people that I'm around won't understand it. You know, like I get super self-conscious, and I just thought that was a thing everyone had. Like, oh, it's akin to like someone going through your wardrobe and stealing your clothes, right?
Yeah.
But my girlfriend said, "Oh, I know you hate listening to your own music around other people, but you know, I kind of want to listen to Half Blood right now." And I had no reluctance. I was just like, "Yo, yes, I actually want to." And I almost feel like with this record, it's easier for me to give permission to people to listen to it around me, if that makes sense. And I
No,
think
it makes
that's
so much
a
sense.
surefire sign that I'm onto something good, like actually good outside of the little neck of producers that I'm in, if that makes sense. I don't know.
100%. Because I think that's such like an artistic breakthrough. Because I think that, especially in a very technical subgenre, just bass music in general, you either get it or you don't. You're either a fan of it and you like it, or you have no idea how even to start comprehensively, audibly listening to it or absorbing it, because a lot of the times there's no vocals or there's just a vocal in the pre-drop. And then a lot of the times too, I think we literally talked about this 5 years ago, which is so crazy, but like a lot of, I think the guys and the girls at the time that were making color bass when it was really just like rocking, or even a little bit after that era, were kind of producing for other producers. And there's like such an important like facet in having yes, literally, shout out my boyfriend, shout out your girlfriend, having someone listen to music that isn't listening from a technical aspect, whether it's your friends, it's your family, somebody who doesn't even know if you opened a DAW where they would even start to begin looking at. Because I think that is what makes like a truly good record. And I think that us as producers, very much so, we often want to have our peers respect us and have our peers impressed and be like, oh, that's such a crazy fucking sound you made, and this layout and this flow and this mix down is everything. But then like the other 95% of people want that little facet of something that they can attach themselves onto, whether it's that campfire melody that gets stuck in your head that you're singing when you like don't even realize you're singing it when you're cooking in the kitchen, or like a crazy vocal. And I think that like Half Blood, the way that it flows, like the tempo changes, the subgenre changes, it's really cohesive. But there's a lot of really, really good records that I think are also super remixable by other producers, which I don't know if you've had music in that bracket before, where it's like people are really obsessed with the verse, the pre-chorus, the hook, the bridge, to a point where somebody goes, I can chop this up and make something fucking absurd. And that's what people become obsessed with.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like I've been thinking about hosting like a remix contest for one of the tunes just with my patrons. I'm a fan of doing like privatized remix contests just because people who enter like will really care. And I did that for Pinwheel a couple years ago. Going back to what you're saying, I like to call it the YouTube tutorial effect, if that makes sense. Like, especially
explain.
If you came up like I did. So I feel like there's two types of producers, especially in bass music. There's the types that are like DJs first and ravers first, that like go to the shows and they completely care about like the heaviness and like the effect of something going off live, right? And so a lot of them attack production very boldly and brashly, right? Like they're like, let's make the heaviest song possible, and they don't at first have a fascination with all of the sonics and all of the sound design and tech, right? And the other method of getting to like a production level that's proficient, I guess, is doing what I did, and that's the YouTube tutorial effect, where I found electronic music through Monster Cat, and then I was just kind of doing it for the love of it. I had never expected to play shows in my life. I think I actually talked about that 5 years ago as well, and here we are. It was always to me about having fun through music and just kind of figuring out how to push the tech. But I feel like if you watch too many YouTube tutorials, your music starts to have this stank of YouTube tutorialness, if you know what I mean. Like it always sounds a little virtual riot-y, but minus the songwriting, I feel. And it always like loses the plot a little bit in some way. Like it's not hummable, right? I don't know. one controversial thing. I'm not sure I can entirely agree with this take, but something one of my old mentors taught me was if you can play a song on a guitar by a campfire, then you know it's good.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I feel like weirdly with Half Blood, you kind of can. Even
you
the
totally
techier,
can. You totally
even the
can.
techier cuts. Like, okay, maybe not anxiety. That'd be a little tough. You just kind of have to bump the shit out of the palm mute. But for most of the others, there's at least one or two elements that are like actually catchy or hummable at the very least. So, I don't know. I feel like I discovered the point, and I've realized like now, back in the day, a lot of the producers I used to respect the most were the ones that had the craziest sound design, and I used to like shit on Tech House and Fisher. That was like always the like my I'd bully it, right? Like that was always like, huh. But now 5 years later, I'm like, no, everything is exactly in the place it needs to be. And I think a lot of younger producers that are going that YouTube tutorial route and saying, if anything, if things don't sound as good as AU5 or Virtual Riot from a technical perspective, then it must be bad. If it's not flexy, it's bad, right? It's like, I think what they don't understand is how goddamn difficult it is to get a tech house song to feel deep and visceral and like simultaneously resonate with like average Joes, right? So a lot, obviously I still love Virtual Riot and AU5. They're my like day ones forever. But I think I'd say like my favorite producers now have changed a little bit to more like, Burial. I'm really into Chris Lake now. Weirdly, I that never expected to happen. But people like Aphex Twin, like back in the day, G Jones. I think G Jones can paint a really really cool picture and tell a cool story while using very like almost rave core production styles and stuff. Obviously, Skrillex is the GOAT, but if you actually listen to the Skrillex songs nowadays, none of the sounds he's using are particularly complicated. But again, they're placed together in such an exceptional way that it just pops out of your speakers while it gets you moving. It's like it's these life enhancers, right? So my new goal with production has gone from trying to flex in every single microsecond and more so, how can I utilize my abilities to paint a picture, to create a vibe, to almost make these life enhancers, if that makes sense, like set down a mood, tell a story, enhance and uplift the songwriting. Like these are the new goals for me of production. And sometimes that requires, in the case of Anxiety, I think the tune's like 5 layers, right? And then sometimes it requires a million layers. I think Dreamer is a lot more of a complex tune. I especially wanted to do like a 2012 style throwback sound in there, and that requires a couple more layers than just your average like sub drums FX, right? So yeah, I think the greatest producers in the world, in my opinion, are the ones that can differentiate and know when to use their sound design flexing in like moderation. That's my take right now. That might change in 2 years.
100%. No, I think that's like just the general evolution, and you're not first person that I've talked to that I've spoken with like 3 to 4 years ago and spoken to now, because I think when somebody jumps into a really complex genre or a complex like first genre for production, it teaches you so much off the bat, but it's really easy to look at your DAW or look at your songwriting or however you're making sounds, designing sounds, and go, this is really difficult because I have 400 tracks running in my DAW and we have all of these tracks that are frozen and my CPU hardly works, and I've made this difficult because this is difficult, and everybody knows that it's difficult to master and hone and execute. I think a lot of people who start their production journey that way look at, just like what you said, the tech house, maybe the more experimental, really 140 deep down bass that's really simple, and go, well, I could totally do that. And then you start to do it and you realize how freaking hard it is to create something unique with dynamic range and energy, something that's catchy, that doesn't sound like everybody else, that can go to YouTube University and make the same shit in Ableton and make it a successful track. It's so difficult. But I think that now, like what you said, is you're just going to use your skill set from the subtlety approach. And because I think that's what really is exciting for listeners, and also will just you will vastly grow your audience and people who feel like your music is a bit more digestible, and you still have that kicking moment of like Flutter crazy sound design, you know, beat 4 respace that like slams people on their feet, but it's not the whole song. And in turn, that leaves those moments so much more impactful. And I think like a lot of people now would say writing an album and releasing an album in this day and age is absolutely absurd. And you and you did it, and I see other artists doing it. Why did you choose to write Half Blood? Did you sit down one day and say it's time for an album? Like, I think a lot of people are very curious on how albums are birthed, especially in this day and age of social media, where dance music is currently, the fact that remixes, nostalgia, 90s, 80s, early 2000 tracks are like that like method formula to success now with the up and coming rising act, no matter what genre you're in. Why'd you do an album?
So it's really funny. This was a completely unconventional way of doing it. I always knew I wanted to write an album after Moonglow. I was kind of in like a very bad place after that. I was like very obsessed with how am I gonna one up Moonglow, right? So I was like, oh, well, we're gonna do an album that's basically Moonglow the album. So I've tried like 45 times to make these like Botanica crazy sound design jammy nurture core things. I like made myself a mood board playlist of what the album had to sound like. And I actually like some of the tunes I started for like the scrapped album weren't too bad. Maybe I'll revisit them in the future now that I feel a lot more creatively free and now that I've had all the epiphanies I had while writing Half Blood. But I was at like my worst creative rut in the middle of 2023. A lot of what I was putting out in 2021, 2022, and 2023 were like backlog tunes, ironically. So in that time, I was at Rampage Open Air 2023. I played with Chime and Kaval. I did like a back-to-back. It was sick as fuck. It was a really good time. But everyone wanted to go see the Hamdi set. And this was before he dropped Push. This was before he dropped Counting. This was before, I mean, he was big, but he wasn't like Hamdi, right? You know?
For sure.
But my friends were like, "Oh, we should go to the set," and I was like, whatever." It's exactly what I was saying before. That like frowning upon it and like looking down upon it. Oh, what? I'm just gonna hear sub and drums. No thanks. And they're like, "Nah, bro, shut the fuck up. Like, come through." I went to his set and I felt this groove and viscerality that I had never felt at an EDM set before. Because usually I'd avoid the house sets. You'd catch me at the bass stage every single time, and I felt this this overwhelming feeling of just like damn, this is what's possible. I can do this. So still a little skeptical, I went home and I did this crusty SpongeBob SquarePants remix as a joke. It sucks that back in the day I had to make ironic art to take it seriously. And so the SpongeBob remix, I was like, wait, I had a great time and I learned like a bunch of things doing this. I'd felt very stagnant in what I was doing. Like I was making objectively more difficult music to make, but I wasn't learning from every song. And it got very fatiguing. It got very monotonous. And all of a sudden I make this shitty SpongeBob remix and I've learned so much. So I was like, okay, let me sit down and make like an actual tune. So then I made Star Cannon. I made it in like a day, pretty much. I was just so immediately invigorated by this new world I had stepped into. And then, yeah, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm like, my album's still my main quest, but let's maybe get a little bit more creative. Well, now that I've found this potential for creativity in this field, maybe I'll make a couple of these and see what happens. And so then it was an EP, and I was talking to Landon, my manager, about it, and he was like, yeah, you know, it might take people off guard if you drop like an album out of this. So, you know, we can probably stick this to an EP, maybe pitch it to Deadbeats as like a little fun side quest. But I kept making more and more songs in this garage style, right? And to the point that I had an entire album worth of material. And you can see behind me, I've got this Rick Rubin book. So I've got I'm sitting on a couple other like Half Blood tunes that were originally part of the album, but didn't make it to the final cut. But at the same time, while I was writing this record, I was also improving my real life. You know, you know me well enough to know I was a very big like internet dweller for a while. I didn't really have much of a social life or like roots around my town, and I like really put a conscious effort into like improving my social life, my self-esteem, going on walks more, going on hikes more, just like figuring out like, hey, I live next to the sickest city in the world. Why have I not been there much? So I overcame a fear of the subway. Ironically, before I wrote Half Blood, I was
The
terrified of the
subway.
subway,
Oh
right?
my
Um,
God. Okay.
and I just was making all these memories with my friends and making all these tunes, and then it became two EPs. It was like we're gonna do a blue line and then a red line and release them a couple months apart. Like
Yeah.
I was just in this such denial about it being an album. And then two labels had rejected it. Oh, not rejected it. They like soft accepted it, but they were like, "Oh, this is a little different. We're a little scared to invest in this. We want to see how it does first, and then we'll consider signing other Skybreak UKG stuff." And it was like, okay. So then we'd pitched it to the third record label, and they we had pitched it to them as the two EPs. And then I said to Landon, like, yo, I think this is an album. I think we just need an interlude between Street Garden was the last track of EP1 and Stone Cold was the first track of EP2. It's like I think we just need like a little interlude between them and it's an album. And Len is like, to be honest, that would make me a lot more excited about this project. And you've already invested so much in like set visuals and like a logo and everything for this. So he's like, let's just call it an album. And it was like, okay. So this was actually two EPs that were written in complete denial. And I never ended up making that whole Botanica changing the world color-based thing. It's funny. I think the lesson learned is if you just express creatively and make a conscious effort to expose yourself to new music and just genuinely let yourself be inspired by it, the albums will just kind of write themselves, right? Like this was never like contracted by a label. It probably was on paper the dumbest decision I could have possibly made, but I don't care. And because the music is so authentic and because it's so me, and I think it really like all the memories that I had while writing it spill into the work somehow, I think it is resonating with people as this fully realized, genuine product, right? So I don't know when I'm going to write my next album. I know I'm not going to put a pressure on it to one up Half Blood. I don't think I want to one up anything ever again. I think all I want to do is just realize visions as well as I did this one and see what happens. So that's the story, I guess.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And you have to feel like somewhat sonically free now.
Yeah, I think so. This was a big gamble because it was going to tell me one of two things. Either I have a fan base that's actually down for whatever I want to do and me as an artist, or I have a fan base that's down for what I can provide for them, which is their color-based fix, right? And I think had I released an album that was a lot more color-basedy, I would have my career may have quote unquote gone down with the ship, right? So the fact that color based isn't as hot as it was in like a 2021, 2022 sort of deal is almost extremely liberating for me, right? Because now it's like I'm under no obligation I mean, I was never under any obligation, but now especially I'm not under an obligation to continue making this to impress people, right? And so all the fans that I gathered from making Color Base, I think pretty much most of the top ones are unanimously loving this product, and it's making me feel like, damn, if I believe a song is really good or I believe an album is really good, I have a group of people that will like it because I wrote it. And it's not because it's color based. It's not because it's UKG. And now that I've moved into this UKG space, I'm seeing a lot more followers come in that are associated more in that UK space. I got a Scream follow, I got a Bengo follow, I got a Koki follow, I got a Tizoki follow today. Like, it's crazy what's going on, right? And these are people that probably would have never really fucked with the color-based stuff, but now they're venturing into my project because of what I can do with this genre. And then in 2-3 years, let's say, I don't know, I want to make some big experimental jazz record. Then I'll weed out all the ones that were here because for a purpose, and I'll keep the ones that ended up thinking I was a good artist, right? And then I rinse and repeat that and collect a little bit from each community every single time until suddenly I'm invincible and I can make fucking anything I want, like that to me feels like the life I want to lead as an artist. And I think me releasing this album when I did and how I did is a great step into doing that. So, yeah.
Dude, you're the shit. I literally I think that the Skybreak that I talked to 5 years ago is not the Skybreak that I have on the line now. I'm so happy for you, not just art wise, just you as a person have like come into your own, which is so exciting. Yeah. And then it gets reflected through your art too. Like just what you were saying, like I was going to ask about like the Subway branding for like Half-Blood, and you answered it for me without me even asking. And that just like really co-aligns with you getting out there and experiencing real things in life with real people you care about, and in turn having new art to write based on those experiences. And now you've just like unlocked this whole new level of artistry, of individuality, of confidence, of self-esteem. And you can see it like completely across the board. And I think a lot of artists, especially in dance music, I think we talked about this 5 years ago, it's really easy to pigeonhole yourself into sounding the same over and over and over again. And it leaves you feeling artistically lackluster and just not so great. I think artists really are trying to, if they've done the same thing for the last decade, if they've done the same thing for the last year, the last 2 years, or following trends up and down, whatever it may be, I think they're trying to accomplish what you have just accomplished with this album. And you just gave them literally the formula, which is one, just do it. But it's also understanding, are your fans there for what you can provide for them, or are they there because they fuck with you and they love you as an artist? You know, that's such a difference.
I like to point to Skrillex in this case, because he's one of my biggest inspirations. I mean, fucking listen to the record. Mm-hmm. But I think people in my life have complained that Skrillex like abandoned dubstep and like, you know, he had his bro step phase from 2009 to like 2013, 2014, right? And then he ditched it and went fully pop, right? And everyone was like so angry, like, like whatever, like almost putting this obligation upon him to write that shit forever, right? Mm-hmm. And I honestly think like I've seen way more cases of artists completely going down with the ship by feeling obligated to write a certain genre and then just going down by getting too attached to the trend. Again, I'm not going to name any names, but I'm sure listeners can figure out a couple. I think I've seen more times of that than an artist making one kind of thing and then pivoting to another, but doing it with the same level of authenticity and genuinity, right? Like I've seen so many less failures in the latter, right?
Yes.
I mean, Getter is a good example of a failure in that regard, which sucks and that's horrible. But at the same time, you know, when you're making, he became very, very known for his bro step, and I think the way he was marketing it was very much like, this is bro steppy. And I think he's come back around. I know he's doing the resurrection shit. I fucking love Getter. His music's great. It always has been. I loved Visceral for what it's worth, but yeah, I don't know. I just wish people weren't so afraid all the time. And I hope someone somewhere can use this as proof that it is possible to do a 180 and have it be successful if it's what you're really feeling. I think learning to trust your gut and intuition rather than what the industry big dogs and what the podcasts are telling you, I think is so important. And I think great art will always shine through any strategic decision to write a certain style.
Great art will always shine through, but I will say that you also saw this vision completely through, not only on the sonic side, but also on the way you presented it on social media and the way all of the artwork looked like, just like how you started this conversation with me, that all of this was really a very joint effort from the visual aspect and the art aspect to the sonic aspect. And how did you, for someone who may be, you know, in that position, looking to do a sonic change, looking to put out a large body of work, do you feel like you put just as much effort or maybe more effort into the visual aspect and how you're going to present it to the world? Like, what did that process look like?
More or less effort? I mean, I feel like it was just so deeply ingrained. Obviously, you don't want to come up with your whole visual aesthetic before you've written the music, but I feel like it evolved pretty naturally. And I think especially on the social media end, something that helped me was when the album was all together and I knew I wanted to do this era shift, I actually created a burner account and would just I just made it totally private. No one's following it, 0 followers. And I would curate. I tried a bunch of different like real thumbnails. I put up the press photos and stuff that I had. I color graded them in a bunch of different ways. And I just figured out like what filters can I add to these to make it feel calculated and consistent, right? This is going back to Dan. I have always admired how consistent his social media page looks, right? And I think about some artists in like major labels. Not saying that's my aspiration, but if you look at Tyler the Creator's page, I love bringing up Tyler because he's become one of my biggest influences. You can just scroll down and you can see every album and every era, and every post is like a different color palette or a different camera quality or has a different ethos. And I just think that's so inspiring because like when people click on your profile, at least in my experience, when you see an overwhelming mess of like a billion reels, even if they're doing quite well, right? If there's no consistency of color, then you get a little overwhelmed and it's quite difficult to find like what the point is, what the releases are, what the culture that's trying to be pushed is. So, I mean, it's not, people think it's a lot harder to curate a social media profile than it is. Like, I mean, I guess I kind of lucked out because I picked black and white and a color splash and all you need to do and some grain, right? So that's not supremely difficult to do to anything. But you know, when I'm making my content in CapCut, there's a button where you can export a screenshot of any moment. So I'll like export the screenshot, I'll drag it into Photoshop, I'll put it on black and white. I will find whatever the one element that sticks out the most is, and I'll just go into the mask and I'll just like slightly get rid of the black and white filter on there so the color pops a bit. Grain on top, done. I've got it down to a 2-minute process every time I want to post. And that 2 extra minutes that you spend on a piece of content, I think absolutely pays off because now, like, whatever, I'll open my Instagram right now. It's like I scroll down and I'm like, dude, if I didn't know who I was, I'd click on this, you know?
100%.
And right before I switched eras, I was experimenting with this as well. I started dragging things into Photoshop and just like absolutely saturating the blues and then desaturating everything else because that was more so the aesthetic of that Moonglow Lumina era.
Yes.
So just figure out what your color is and just put an extra like 2-3 minutes of effort in and watch people get way more stoked about your page.
And I can see, like, I'm literally on your Instagram right now because you kind of see, like, you've archived a lot of stuff on your feed, but your reels are still there. And you can see as, like, it changes, like, the eras start to change as you go into literally, like, the Half-Blood era. Which is so cool. Like, I love that. And what you said, like, it doesn't have to be this hard thing that you have to commission somebody for, that you have to pay somebody for. Like, all of the tools are at your fingertips, and we, to our, you know, dismay or to our demise, but also to our huge benefit, we have all of the help that we need to figure out how to use these tools now. And when you're talking about like the full concept of the Half-Blood album, you threw like a subway party. I saw like some of like the canvases and stuff. Like, is that just something that you knew you wanted to do? Like, you wanted to do a pop-up. It was about New York City. Like, you had your show in Tokyo that was like very on brand for the album itself. Did those just kind of all fall into place, or were these like meticulously planned moments?
So the Tokyo show just fell into place, and I was extremely excited about that. Tokyo and Nagoya. We sold out Tokyo, got damn close with Nagoya. I'm gonna consider it a mental sellout, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, that just fell into place in the perfect time. I think in the case of the subway rave, I knew that the subway was going to be a big part of the aesthetic, from the blue line, red line thing, and you know, getting Bernie on board to voice it over, and we'll talk about that later. But for the subway rave, it's funny. I went into ChatGPT and I wrote out everything about my album aesthetic. I literally put in like a 10,000 word essay of every single song, what every single song means to me, what the story it is that I'm trying to tell, what the aesthetic is, what the color scheme is, what like about how I wanted grain and stuff, the thing about the subways, everything. And I said, give me 20 growth marketing and 20 experiential marketing things. So growth marketing is when you're trying to target people that don't know who you are, and experiential is targeting people that know who you are and giving them something to be fucking excited about, right? And so ChatGPT gave me these ideas. Some of them were ludicrous, like like climb to the top of the Empire State Building and
Perfect.
I'm like, no, like that's an awesome idea. Or I don't know. There were some silly ones like place a USB in every single city, and I'm like, dude, yeah, let me drop 5 bands on on the airplanes. But what it did bring up was the New York subway rave, and I was like throw a rave on the New York subway. And at first glance, I was like, it's another stupid thing. And then I was like, wait, but hang on, has someone done this yet? And I looked it up and I found a company that throws these like subway parties and bridge parties and stuff. And I'm like, this would be crazy. Nobody's done this in bass music. Every set that they did was within like house music or techno or something like that. So there was a big discrepancy in the world of bass. So I was like, this would be a crazy way to announce the album. So
Yeah.
we put the pieces together. It took us 2 months of logistical planning to get that one together. And yeah, we pulled it off. Thankfully, we did not get arrested. It was quite the nightmare to get together, but we pulled it off, to be honest. And yeah, I guess the lesson learned, I'm not saying I'm not going to condone or diss the use of AI or stuff. I would never use an AI generated art. I want to pay my artists. But when you need to get the ball rolling, it's a great tool for that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, use your judgment. Don't do everything on the list. And obviously, come up with your own things and your own way to do things. Don't let it be your overlord. But you can think of things that aren't gonna just naturally come to you by typing in everything, right? I don't know.
Exactly, because I think when you're in this creative process, especially when you're finishing such a large body of work, you have so many things going through your inner dialogue and so many thoughts and so many ideas. And I think that I've used ChatGPT for literally the same exact reason. Like, help me come up with a radio name show that's on brand for me, that's on brand for everything. And even though it didn't end up being any of those, it drove me in the right direction that I was like, yeah, this hits on this part of my brand and this part of where I want to be present and this part. And it's stuff I would have never thought about. So it's like, it's all of your thoughts, but the way that it's able to organize it and present really unrealistic ideas and maybe some ideas that you go, well, that's pretty good. It's an absolute tool. It's there's a right way to use it and there's 100% a wrong way to use it. And
yeah, absolutely.
We've had that conversation I've had the AI conversation so much recently, and I honestly have just way more intriguing things I want to talk to you about than going into the AI conversation right now. But I want to talk about, you got one of the main voices for the New York subway to like come and narrate the album and support the album. Talk to me about that. Give me all of the details.
Right. So I'm going to try and say this without doxing myself, but I mean, I guess whatever. Well, we'll see. Fuck it. So I was looking up on Wikipedia, notable people from my county in New Jersey. I was just crashing out one day. I was just like, why am I not here? And I noticed there were a couple people from my high school that were like playing in the NFL and stuff. And I'm like, yo, what the heck? And this was maybe like midway through writing Half-Blood. I'd say like late 2024-ish. And I saw Bernie Wagonblast, voice of the New York City subway. And I'm like, wait, you're fucking kidding. Like, they live within 6 miles of me? That's ridiculous. And so I was like, I wonder if people know them, if I can nepo my way in and see what happens. And sure enough, like my mom knew a mom who had done work for her old radio station, and we got the connection, and I got her email. And so I sent her an email basically saying, hey, like, I'm a fellow queer person from blank New Jersey. And I'd really appreciate if you could I'm working on this electronic music project inspired by the New York subway and the London Underground. And I would appreciate if you could give it an added layer of authenticity by, saying a couple lines for me. Like, let me know what your rates would be for that. And if this is something you're on board for, like, I realize this is quite a weird ask for you. It's not quite like a transportation commission. Within 3 minutes, I get a phone call. It's her on the phone. She's like, I'd love to do that. I've never worked on electronic. She's just this lovely, like, 60-year-old transgender woman.
God.
And she's just the best. And I'm like, okay, like, how much would that be? Like, I'm super down. She's like, for you, like, you seem great. How's $10?
Holy shit.
So she said I got her to announce every single show that I'm playing this year. And everything that you hear on the album, which is like the red line, blue line transfer, the thank you for writing, Half-Blood watermark, and so many other things. It's like, it's incredible. I love her so much. And so then I was like, I gave her another call and I was like, hey, like $10, eh? How about I just take you out for lunch? And she was like, yeah, I'm super down for that. So we like hung out, and she's just like the coolest person I've ever met, and super duper cool. I came on her like local radio podcast thing as well, and we talked. If viewers want to check that out as well, and yeah, she's just kind of like a homie now. I'm like, dang, I'm homies with the New York subway announcer. That's wild. Let's
Oh
go.
my
And
goodness.
yeah, she's been supporting the heck out of the album, and she did voiceover work for Lin-Manuel Miranda. He did like a musical version of this old movie called The Warriors, which is about these five gangs around New York City and stuff, and they're riding the subway back and forth and stuff. And yeah, she narrated the musical, so it's a bit of a downstep, I think, but still
That's
pretty cool.
so crazy. That's
Yeah.
incredible that you were able to accomplish that. Holy crap.
No,
That's so
it's
cool.
winning.
And I feel like that's universe. You know what I'm saying? Like you're working
That's
on
what I was
something,
thinking.
you don't know like where the direction is like yet, but you know it's inspired by these moments. You know the subway's going to be a big part of it, and then you're randomly looking at your zip code predominant individuals.
Yeah.
And they just come up. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Like that's such a cool backstory. And I know with like just the album in general, I literally just listened before we got on this conversation, and I feel like you can hear almost like similar melodies in different parts of the album. Like I
Yes.
know you're a very intellectual individual, so I know that those were probably some maybe on accident, some probably on purpose, but is there some other things that you can tell us about the album that maybe the average listener hasn't quite caught on to yet?
Yeah, of course. So what you're describing is called the leitmotif. I've been doing this in a couple bodies of work. Notably Lumina, I think, had like a piano thing that plays in every single song. And I think Moonglow, I did a couple references to other tunes, but the big leitmotif of Half Blood is it's this one little drum fill. It goes da da da, like 1, 2, 3, da da da. It's like it sounds really dumb when I say it, but it's in every single song, and it's like the Half Blood lick for me. So yeah, that's something I've done in a lot of my tunes. This one I decided to do a rhythmic leitmotif rather than a big intricate piano or something. It's something that I've ripped from like video game soundtracks and a lot of film scores. Like you notice like a film will have a theme and then you'll hear the theme interpolated in different moments. That's what I'm trying to apply to this album. In terms of things I'd like to get into, I've hidden something in the album, an ARG, and my fans haven't worked it out yet. And I'm recording this 3 weeks after the podcast,
Oh
and
my
people
God.
they've gotten close, but they're struggling. I'm gonna kind of put this out here if you're listening. Um, if you run Vagabond, which is the halfway point of the album, the connector of the blue line and red line, through an analyzer, and you look at the very, very end, you'll notice a link embedded in the high end. So you'll have to transcribe the link and type it into the Google URL to trigger the ARG. And there's a pretty cool hidden prize at the end of it. But again, nobody's found it yet.
Oh
And the
my
other hint I will
gosh.
give you, one of the clues that everyone's getting really stumped on, they're really cosmically overthinking it. And my one key word that I'm gonna give is unity. And that's it.
Okay.
So
Listen
uh,
up. Listen up.
listen up. Unity is the key word. So if my fans are listening, hopefully that gets you to it. I really want people to work it out.
I'm
I
100% putting this little section in the Insomniac chat so people just blow up the album looking for the secret code.
yes,
Oh
please
my
do.
gosh.
So yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, there's tons of hidden little things. I think like a more wholesome hidden thing in this record is pretty much the whole time there's like the faint hum of a subway across the whole thing. Like you'll hear there's a lot of vinyl dust and crackle, but there's also in the low end, if you run it through analyzers or if you just listen closely, really, you'll notice there's a subway rumble. And a lot of these were moments I recorded myself when I was coming back from shows in my sort of like glow up period in 2023. Like anytime I'd have like a fucking good day with my friends, or even like a bad day. I think in Street Garden, the one that I specifically put in that was the train ride I took home after I'd broken up with an old partner and stuff. Like, it's the type of thing that like only I am ever gonna notice and only I am ever gonna know the backstory of. But I'd like to think subtly it sends this like energy to people, of just like this came from a moment of introspection or a moment of like, God damn, I love my friends, or like, holy shit, we did that, or a moment of, the catharsis of finding your way home and stuff like that. Like, each little Subway sample does that. And then obviously I'd use Splice for some of them as well. So God
we
knows.
love that. But we have the combination. Yeah. We have super intentional, purposeful Foley sound, and then we have Splice Foley sound. And we meet in the middle. And we love that. We meet in the middle. But that's so like, I just feel like Half-Blood is an intentional like record, but it's like dance music and it's feel good and it has this dynamic. You can definitely feel like an emotional push and pull throughout the whole thing. How did you come up with the name Half-Blood?
So it's really funny. If you notice behind me, you'll see there's a poster with a glowing deer on it, and that is Lumina EP, which was my first EP on Disciple from 2021.
Yep.
I didn't have any branding or anything back in the day, and I never even thought about it, right? So they accepted my EP, and I had I had need to come up with what the cover art was going to be. And at the time it was COVID, so I was going to like a local forest every day, and I'd see like a little family of deer wandering around. So I was like, oh, let's do like a glowing deer. That's kind of like a foresty project, right? And I thought I was being so original. I was like, no one has ever done this before. So I put up the glowing deer. I do like a little teaser. Harry Potter? Patronus? Prisoner of Azkaban? Yo? And I was like, fuck! Oh, man. But that wasn't enough to dissuade me. I ended up sticking with the deer. I still love... I did grow up reading Harry Potter, which is why it's a little embarrassing that this has happened. So with Half-Blood, obviously this project is supposed to be the cross between US dubstep and a lot of the melodics and a lot of the emotion and a lot of the push-pull of that. And the grooves, viscerality, and vibes of London dubstep from the 2000s, right? And also I am a dual citizen with the US and UK. So it was Half-Blood as in that, right? Like half US,
Half-Blood Prince,
but also the Half-Blood Prince. We intentionally wanted to double down on doing the Harry Potter bit. So
I love it.
So it's a double entendre on that front, and then also it comes across as a little bit edgier and a little bit darker than my other previous works. Like we got Lumina, Moonglow, Unity, stuff like that, right? Like these are all to me very like foresty, luminescent, positive, generally like light. It's always this source of light, like moon glow, right? But Half-Blood to me feels a lot darker and more, blood, and I don't know.
I love it. So, no, it's definitely like the duality. It's so funny because it's like the purposeful, intentional meaning of it. And then we've got Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter. I am like a Harry Potter stan. I like Lord of the Rings too. I will always like Harry Potter more than Lord of the Rings. I'm sorry, you can come for me, but that is same thing. I grew up reading the books, like big ordeal. Those movies were like such a big part of my childhood, like first movie to last movie. Incredible. But that's so awesome. I had that kind of in the back of my mind. I'm like, are we running with the Half-Blood Prince here, or is there something more to it? But I was like, I guarantee you Skybreak loves Harry Potter. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out. So I appreciate you giving me that little insight. My last thing I want to ask you is, it's really hard because I don't want to like singularly ask you for a favorite record, but if you had maybe a new fan that's discovering you either on Insomniac or from the podcast or just something else in general, like, what are a few records from Half-Blood that you would really point them to listen to if they didn't have the time to listen to the album front to back?
I think Stone Cold, Street Garden, and Can't Let Go would be the three tunes that I think showcase the most range of this record, if that makes sense. Do I think they're my favorites? Possibly. I do really love all three tunes. But I think those three tunes showcase just how diverse this record is while all still feeling very, very Half-Blood. And that is very intentionally why we chose those as the singles. Do I think there's tunes on the record that may have, quote unquote, streamed better if we put them as singles? Yes. But from a strategic standpoint, those are 3 points people can come in and be like, oh, this album really does have everything. So yeah, those would be my three tunes.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. But I would also say just go and listen to it front to back. It's such a cool, like, conceptual journey of listening. And obviously you just put out this huge freaking album that is absolutely incredible. And everybody should go stream Half-Blood and find all the little hidden Easter eggs that are incorporated throughout the album. Is there anything that's on the horizon that you're excited about that maybe you could tease to anybody listening today?
So yes, there's a not so secret unreleased collab coming out soon with Slander and Ty Dolla $ign, which is going to be really cool.
Slander and Ty Dolla $ign.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Shit, dude.
I'm gonna do a campaign. This is just me pitching a stupid fucking idea. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do it yet. But I remember a couple of years ago, Trivecta, before he was big, did a collaboration with Wooly and Excision called Oxygen. And he put up a post in a Facebook group. I'm not sure why I remember this. That basically said, "Hey, I'm doing a collab with Excision and Wooly. These are two artists much bigger than me. Spam their comment sections to make sure people don't forget I'm a part of this tune." So what I was thinking about doing was renting a billboard somewhere in like rural Pennsylvania that basically says like, "My name is Skybreak. I have a collab with Slander and Ty Dolla $ign. Don't let the world forget." And then just like insinuate the same thing and then take a picture like in front of it or something. I'm not sure I'm going to do it yet, but let's face it, these are artists with actually probably 10,000 times more fans than me. So
I mean, what a massive record, first off, to be a part of. Yeah, because I saw you played that with them at their festival, right?
Starbase, yes.
Starbase, yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, because it was on their little carousel slide. And if you don't do the billboard in rural Pennsylvania, we will have a problem, because that would actually be absolutely insane. But I definitely think a good Facebook post would do the same thing. I think that's phenomenal. That's like dry humor to the max, but also, hey, this is a huge freaking deal, and let's make sure everybody knows we're a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm already starting to see it. I feel like Ty has posted about this tune already, and no mention of me yet, despite me being a primary artist on it. So yeah, we'll see. We're gonna try our best. But we love that. So that's extremely exciting. Later this month, as of this coming out, I have an official remix coming out for Dabbin. It's a remix of his tune with Frost Top and Tiffany Day. This is the third one I've done for him. Obviously, my first ever bus tour was with him in 2022, which was crazy, honestly, life-changing. I probably would still be at college working a boring IT job if it weren't for him picking me up for that. And this was just like a fun celebration because I adore the Aura Park album that he put out. And I really just wanted to supply him a remix that felt like me now. So this is the first like Half-Blood era remix. It's very trappy. It was almost my take on doing that sort of ISO-EXO style new wave trap, but infusing some of my like color bassy elements in it as well. So I'm very excited about it. It's one of my favorite remixes I've ever done. So between that and the Slander Ty tune, we've got a couple tunes coming with Monster Cat later this year as well. I've been venturing into the world of drum and bass, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah.
So exciting. So happy for you. We're in the new era, new Skybreak era. Everybody's here for it. I'm super excited to hear all the new music, in addition to continue bumping the album. And if you're listening to this podcast now, I hope you tuned in to my show yesterday on Insomniac Radio, where we listened through Skybreak's new album, Half-Blood. We did a total album playthrough and, broadcasted some of this interview. And thank you guys for listening to the full thing. This was so cool to have you do a deep dive. And I don't know, have you been able to talk about the album like this yet?
Yeah, I've hopped on a couple podcasts, but honestly, this one was pretty cool. This was a fun one.
Awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad we marked this off as a fun one. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for anybody listening, where can they find you? Give them your handles or wherever you want to send them.
So yeah, I'm at Skybreak EDM on most platforms, and you can find my music on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. If you're ever interested in learning how I make my stuff, I've got a Patreon. I do weekly feedback streams there as well, so you can send me a tune every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and I will guaranteed listen to it and deeply analyze it right in front of you. As well as, tons of tutorials and a monthly sample pack. I try not to charge too much. I want to give you guys bang for your buck. So, yep, we got Patreon, Skybreak EDM everywhere else. Find me on any platform that you listen to music. The name is Skybreak. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast to be back.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much for listening to the album and being willing to support it. At the end of the day, I did completely self-release this project, which was
incredible.
Quite a bold thing to do, but you know, at the end of the day.
Seems like it worked out for you, though. And I think it's just like an awesome lesson for people to learn that you just do it, you know, just do it with whatever capacity that you have going on and whatever your resources are. See your vision through and do what feels like authentic to you. And it's going to communicate with your fans 100%. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a good rest of your day. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much and take care.